My name is Danielle. I am 34 years old. They tossed my house key in the trash right in front of me. I was the one who paid the first mortgage installment when my father died. So I bought the whole house back in silence and waited for the perfect moment to return. Before we continue, I'd love to know, where are you watching from today? Comment below. I was always the one who stayed. When my father passed away suddenly, I was 21 and just a few credits shy of finishing community college. My mother was crumbling under the weight of grief and unpaid bills, and my younger siblings were still in high school, oblivious to the looming collapse around us. So I stepped in. I left school, picked up 2 jobs, and started covering everything: groceries, utilities, even the mortgage. No one asked me to. They just watched me do it. The house we lived in was not grand, but it was ours, so I believed. A 2-story clapboard on the east side of town with creaking floors and a porch swing my father built. I used to sit on that swing with my coffee every morning before heading to work. It became my ritual, my peace. I told myself that helping my family was the right thing, that maybe one day they would see me not just as the one who held everything together, but as someone worth remembering. My mother, once vibrant and talkative, had changed after his death. She became cold in ways that confused me. She would praise my sister for setting the dinner table, but never mention that I paid for the food. She would post photos online of my brother getting a new jacket, never noting that I bought it. At first, I thought she was still grieving. I told myself it would pass, but over time, it became clear my contributions were invisible because they were expected. I was the daughter who gave, not the one who received. As years passed, my siblings grew into adulthood. My brother moved in and out of jobs, never staying long, always landing softly in our mother's good graces. My sister took beauty classes and started a YouTube channel that drained her more than it paid her. I was the one who kept the lights on. I never resented them, not really. I just wanted to be seen, to be thanked, to be loved without conditions. I gave up dating for a while. I told myself I had no time, but deep down, I think I knew EY was too tired to try. Every ounce of energy went into surviving, into covering the gaps my family left open. I did not have dreams anymore. I had responsibilities. And still, I stayed. Through sickness, late payments, and moments when I wanted to scream, I never left. Even when my room was given temporarily to my sister's best friend who needed a place to crash, I slept on the couch for weeks, brushing crumbs off my blanket before sunrise. The turning point began slowly, almost quietly. I remember walking into the kitchen one morning and seeing balloons tied to a chair. My sister stood there grinning, wearing a new dress. It was her birthday. My mother had made pancakes and posted a story online with the caption, "My heart." My favorite girl. I stood there, smiling faintly, waiting for someone to realize my birthday had passed just 2 weeks before. No balloons, no pancakes, not even a card. I did not mention it. I just sat down, poured some coffee, and listened to them laugh about the party they were planning for Saturday. No one asked if I was free. No one asked if I wanted to come. It was not the first time I had been forgotten, but it was the first time it no longer shocked me. I realized that I was no longer part of the story they told themselves about family. I was the background, the frame, not the portrait. The roof, not the name on the mailbox. Later that night, I walked out to the porch and sat on the swing. My father built. The air was still. I held my cold coffee cup and stared at the stars. A question began circling my mind like smoke. What if I left? What would happen? Would they notice? Would it matter? But I did not leave. Not yet. I went back inside, folded laundry that was not mine, and answered work emails until midnight. What was going wrong? Everything. And yet, nothing loud enough to scream. Just silence, the kind that erases you. And the pain, it was not sharp. It was slow, like being rewritten out of your own home. So what would I do next? I did not know then. But something inside me had shifted, and once that shift begins, the rest is only a matter of time. The day I lost my job, it rained. Not the kind of soft drizzle that soaks in slowly, but a hard, cold downpour that makes you feel like the sky itself is against. I remember sitting in my car outside the office, hands shaking as I reread the email again and again. Restructuring, downsizing, budget limitations. Words that said everything and nothing. I had been at that company for nearly 8 years. I had trained half the team, helped launch new departments, and mentored interns who now made more than I ever had. But none of that mattered. One meeting, one sentence, and I was erased from the payroll. I drove home in silence, windshield wipers moving like a metronome to some cruel rhythm. When I walked through the front door, My mother barely looked up from her phone. My sister was laughing in the kitchen with her friend, the same one who had once taken my room. I said the words quietly, "I lost my job." There was a pause, a heartbeat of silence. Then my mother sighed, "Well, you will have more time to help around the house." That was it. No. Are you okay? No, we are here for you. Just a shrug and a shift. I had gone from provider to problem in a single sentence. The following weeks were a blur. I applied for jobs, rewrote my resume, updated my LinkedIn. I offered to cook, clean, run errands. I wanted to be useful. I thought maybe if I stayed helpful, I would still have a place. But everything changed. My brother, who barely worked, began mocking me in subtle ways. Jokes about me finally living like the rest of us. My sister called me her roomie, as if I were a charity case. I noticed small things disappearing, my mug replaced, my favorite blanket gone. It was like they were scraping me out, piece by piece. One evening, I came home from a long walk and found my room rearranged. My desk pushed aside, a makeup vanity in its place. My sister beamed at me like it was a surprise party. "I needed better lighting in here," she said. "You can work in the garage. There is plenty of space." I stood there, holding a bag of groceries I had paid for with the last of my severance. My clothes had been shoved into plastic bins. My books were stacked near the water heater. That night, I slept on a fold-up mattress beside the lawnmower. They had taken my room. I got the leftovers. I said nothing, but something inside me fractured. I tried not to cry. I told myself to be patient, that I would get another job, and things would go back to normal. But I was starting to see it clearly. There was no normal to go back to. I was useful when I brought in money. I was family when I paid the bills. Without that, I was an extra dot. It did not stop there. They began planning events without maintainers, outings, even a weekend trip to the lake. I would overhear details while doing laundry or bringing in groceries. My name was never mentioned. One night, I opened the fridge and saw labeled containers. Mom, Ty, Jenna. Nothing for me. I ate toast. Again, it felt intentional, like they wanted me to disappear without the guilt of kicking me out. They began locking the front door earlier. The key I had used for years suddenly stuck in the lock. One night I came home late and found it changed. My mother opened the door reluctantly, as if I were a stranger at 10 p.m. "You should let us know when you are out late," she said flatly. "It is disrespectful." I nodded, stepping past her into the house I once paid for. I wanted to scream, but I said nothing. I just walked quietly to the garage, curled up on the mattress, and stared at the ceiling. How had it come to this? What was going wrong? It was not just about money, it was about value. And I had none, at least not to them. The pain was deep, not because they had changed, but because I had been blind to what was always there. And the anger, it burned like a small coal inside me, slow and steady. I did not want revenge. I just wanted to exist again, somewhere where my worth was not conditional. But I knew one thing now. Clear as a bell, this was not my home. And soon, it would not be theirs either. It happened at the annual family BBQ, the one my father used to host. Back when people still remembered what unity felt like. He would man the grill with his apron covered in ketchup stains, telling the same jokes, year after year. My mother would make her peach cobbler, and my siblings and I would run barefoot across the lawn. Those were the memories I held on to. But this time, it was different. This time, I was not invited. Not directly. I found out about it on social media. Blurry flyer posted by my sister with emojis and hashtags backyard bash. It read, I stared at the screen for a long time. The same backyard where I learned how to ride a bike. The same house where I once paid the mortgage. My name was nowhere on the guest list. Still, I showed up. Not out of pride, but out of hope. Maybe they forgot to tell me. Maybe I was still welcome. I wore jeans and a clean blouse. Brought a store-bought fruit tray. When I walked in through the side gate, no one even turned around. The backyard was full, music playing, kids running, laughter cutting through the breeze. Tables were set up with name cards. I scanned the rows. Jenna, Ty, Mom, Uncle Ray. Even Jenna's dog had a place. I looked for mine, there was none. I placed the fruit tray near the drinks and found a quiet corner near the fence. I smiled when someone made eye contact. No one stopped to talk. 30 minutes passed, then my mother's voice rang out loud and clear. I just want to say how proud I am of my kids, she began. Standing in the center of the yard with the microphone someone handed her, she pointed at my brother. Ty's working hard, figuring out his next step. And Jenna, oh my sweet Jenna, growing her brand and being such a light. People clapped. My sister did a mock curtsy. Then silence. I waited for my name. It never came. She moved on to thanking neighbors, then closed by saying how full her heart was, how complete the house felt with everyone back together. The words stung more than any slap. I stood there, my fruit tray untouched. Then someone behind me muttered, "Is that her? The one who still lives in the garage?" Laughter followed, soft, cruel. My ears rang. I did not turn around. I just walked toward the gate, feeling every step like glass underfoot. As I passed my mother, she said without looking, "You could have told us you were coming. We did not plan for extras." Extras, that word echoed through my chest. I had become an extra in my own life. The support beam they painted over, the name they erased. I got in my car, parked down the block, and drove in silence. That night, I returned to the garage. My bed still had a dip from where the air mattress had started to deflate. I lay there, staring at the ceiling, my body motionless but my mind spinning. I was invisible. And not just to the guests, to the very people I had built my life around. No one asked where I went, no one called, no apology text, no awkward check-in. They had celebrated around me, laughed through me, and discarded me with the same effort it took to flick away a crumb. And still, I said nothing. But something inside me had gone cold. It was no longer sadness. It was clarity. I would not beg for space again. I would not earn my seat at a table I helped build. I would not live in the garage while they toasted their futures with my labor. What was going wrong? Everything I ignored was now a mirror sharp, unforgiving. What pain was surfacing? The pain of realizing you were never loved unconditionally. What would I do next? I did not know. But I would not be there to watch them forget me again. The night after the barbecue, I could not sleep. The air mattress hissed faintly beneath me, as if it, too, had grown tired of holding weights. Outside, the yard lights cast long shadows on the garage wall. Inside, I stared at the ceiling rafters, wondering how something as strong as a beam could still feel so forgotten. I stopped checking my phone. There were no messages anyway. Not from my mother, not from my siblings. I was no longer expecting love. I was just trying to understand the shape of the absence. I went through the motions like a ghost. I still cooked sometimes. I still swept the kitchen floors. But no one asked me to. No one thanked me. I stopped eating dinner with them. I would walk in, drop the groceries on the counter, and return to the garage like a tenant whose lease had expired long ago. One evening, I found a stack of envelopes on the hallway table, bills I used to pay without question. I stared at them for a long time, then slid them back into the pile. I would not do it anymore. Not because I was angry, but because I had finally accepted the truth. I did not belong there. They did not want me. Not really. And still, I had stayed. That was the hardest part to admit. That I had lingered in a place that had stopped being home. That I kept offering my love like a coin into a fountain that never gave a wish back. I walked to my old bedroom that night. It was locked. A small paper sign taped to the door said, "Do not enter, filming in progress." It was my sister's new content studio now. I stepped back slowly, the hallway light buzzing above me. Something broke then, quietly, like a thread coming loose from the center of a sweater. I went to the garage, opened the storage bin that held what was left of my life, some sweaters, old journals, the broken key I used to carry. I held it in my palm, cold, bent, forgotten, just like me. I stared at it for a long time, then placed it on the small desk I had managed to salvage. Not in anger, but as a reminder of what they took and what I let them take. That night, I made a decision. I would stop asking, stop hoping, stop offering. I would not announce it. I would not cry. I would simply disappear emotionally at first, then physically, when I was ready. I applied for a temporary freelance position I had seen online, low pay, but remote. I got it 2 days later. I accepted. Then I stopped speaking. At dinner, stopped offering rides. Stopped asking if anyone needed anything. They barely noticed. And somehow, that made the silence easier to bear. There was power in it. The kind of power that does not shout, but grows roots deep underground. I began to journal again. Just a few sentences each night. Not about them, about me. Who was I when I was not being useful? Who was I if I was no longer needed? And slowly, I began to rebuild, not with noise, but with quiet. I took long walks alone. I drank coffee in parks instead of on the porch. I started sending small amounts of money to a separate savings account under my own name. One I had never told my family about. Piece by piece, I was stitching myself back together. They thought I was sulking, but I was healing. They thought I was lost, but I was building a map no one else could read. And the pain, it still sat with me, like an old scar. But now, I could touch it without crying. What was going wrong? Nothing anymore. I had stopped participating in my own erasure. What pain was surfacing? Only the pain I needed to see clearly. What would I do next? Not run, not fight. I would transform, silently, fully, forever. What would you have done in her place? I'd love to hear your thoughts. Drop them in the comments. From the outside, I looked the same, quiet, predictable, present, but unremarkable. But inside, everything had changed. There is a stillness that comes after heartbreak. Not the kind that leaves you weeping, but the kind that leaves you watching, studying, calculating the weight of every memory, every glance, every closed door. I no longer flinched at being ignored. I welcomed it. Their indifference became my permission slip. I kept my movements small, unthreatening. I made my coffee early and left the house before sunrise. I told them I was applying for jobs at the library. They nodded, distracted, and said, "Good luck." But I was not applying for anything nearby. I had accepted a remote consulting contract with a company based in another state. The pay was nearly double what I earned before. It was short-term at first, but renewable. I worked from cafes and libraries, always returning home before dinner, keeping the illusion intact. They never asked where I went. They never noticed how quiet I had become, which was fine because, in that silence, I made moves. I opened an LLC. In another name, one my family would never recognize. I started reading about real estate, investment trusts, silent partners. I attended webinars, saved case studies, watched tutorials at night while they slept. For the first time, I was building something that belonged only to me. And still, I played the part. I folded towels. I refilled the sugar jar. I smiled when spoken to. They assumed my calm was surrender, but it was strategy. My mother had started bragging again, this time about her renovation plans. She posted online about redoing the kitchen, hiring someone to upgrade the floors. She had no idea the mortgage was behind. No idea that missed payments had already triggered warnings. She had refinanced years ago after I stopped paying, but she was careless with money. She trusted that someone would save her. Someone always had. Not this time. I kept my head down and eyes wide open. My siblings had grown bolder in my silence. Ty left dirty dishes in the garage sink. Jenna used my laundry soap without asking. My mother began referring to the garage as storage space in conversations with friends on speakerphone. Once, I found a for sale flyer on the kitchen counters, had offered to buy the house off. My mother laughed. "No way. This place is gold." She said that while standing in the home I had once paid to save. She did not know she was holding a sandcastle. Behind my calm face, I tracked every financial misstep, every payment missed, every lien notice that arrived in her name. I created a file. I even contacted a silent real estate agent, the kind that handles foreclosures before they hit the market. The house had a title cloud, but it was solvable. One signature, one fund transfer, and I could own it quietly, cleanly, legally still. I waited. I watched my family prepare for the holidays, decorate the house, and invite friends over. Not once did they ask if I wanted to join. Not once did they buy a single decoration for the garage. Found the broken key one morning tucked in a drawer beneath loose batteries and expired coupons. The one they had thrown away when they changed the locks. I had saved it, cleaned it, and set it aside. Now I held it again. The tarnish was still there, but it felt different in my hand. Not bitter, just heavy. A reminder they had discarded me like something old, but I had become something new. The silence that used to suffocate me now kept me safe. Because no one suspects the quiet one. No one fears the daughter who folds towels without speaking. No. One prepares for the girl in the garage. They thought I had surrendered, but I had only stopped performing. What was going wrong? Nothing, because I had finally stopped waiting for them to see me. What pain was surfacing? Only the ache of growth and the strange comfort of solitude. What would I do next? Buy the house, reclaim the soil that had buried me, and return not with fury, but with ownership. It started with a voicemail. A neighbor from down the block, Mrs. Cartwright, the kind who baked too many cookies and watered her plants at sunrise, left a message on my burner phone. The one I had listed under my LLC. She did not know she was speaking to me. I heard from the bank that the Henderson house might be going under. Just thought someone should know. The Henderson house. Ours. The one I once saved with my 20th paycheck and a borrowed credit card. I played the message 3 times before deleting it. My hands were calm, my breath even, because I already knew I had been watching the numbers fall behind. I had seen the foreclosure notice delivered, tucked into a pile of unpaid credit card bills that my mother had ignored. I had even spoken, discreetly, with the lender through my agent. But hearing it from someone else made it real. My family had no idea. They were standing in a home that no longer legally belonged to them. Not truly. Not for long. And I had a plan. The LLC I created, Ever and Gray, had just enough liquidity to buy out the remaining balance on the house. My agent had confirmed that once the lien was cleared and the documents filed, the ownership could transfer directly to the LLC, bypassing public notice. A clean sweep, a silent transaction, one signature away. I had the funds, and more than that, I had resolve. I remembered the day I found the tax documents on the kitchen table, red-stamped and unopened. My mother had said, laughing, "It is probably junk mail." I had said nothing, just noted the number and added it to the spreadsheet on my private laptop. She had let the property taxes fall behind, let the maintenance lapse, let the foundation rot beneath her while she hosted dinner parties and called herself blessed. She had no idea what was coming, and I would not warn her. That week, I met with my agent at a coffee shop 3 towns away. I signed the preliminary documents. The trust agreement was prepared. The seller and acquisition firm working with the lender had agreed to the terms. All I needed to do was finalize the wire transfer. It would take 2 days, and then the house would be mine. They would not know. Not yet. Nothing would change on the outside. No letters, no locks, no shouts. Not until I was ready, and I would be. Because sometimes power is not about shouting louder. Sometimes power is about waiting, watching, owning, that night. I walked past my mother in the hallway. She was on the phone with a friend. No, she is still here, living in the garage like some sad movie character. I keep telling her she needs to move on. I think she likes being pitiful. She laughed. I said nothing, just kept walking. Later, I lay in bed and wrote 2 lines in my journal. They raised her to be chosen. I raised myself to survive. That was the difference. Jenna had always been the favorite, pampered, praised, protected. But I had taught myself to endure, to build, to wait for my moment and strike with silence. I looked at the key again, still resting on the desk, tarnished. Bent, still mine. What was going wrong? Only their illusion. What pain was surfacing? The kind that cleans you out, so something truer can grow. What would I do next? Wire the money, sign the deed, and let them celebrate a house they no longer owned. 2 days later, I wired the funds. I stood in line at thebank.com as the ocean after a storm, holding a folder with documents they would never see. When the teller confirmed the transaction, I thanked her with a soft smile. She had no idea she had just handed me back my life. That was done. The house, their house, was now mine. Not in the way they would understand, not loudly, not with eviction notices or confrontations. No, it was now owned legally and silently by Ever and Gray. The trust had taken possession, filed the title update, and arranged a silent holding structure to keep my name hidden until I was ready to be known. They still laughed in the kitchen that night, still walked past me like I was air, still spoke about their plans for renovations, for a backyard deck, for a future they believed was theirs to mold, but everything they touched now belonged to me. They just did not know it, and I would not tell them. Not yet, because true power is not declared, it is revealed. One evening, my sister walked into the garage, unbothered and barefoot. "I'm thinking of painting the garage and using it for storage," she said. "It is just sitting here." I nodded once. "Sure," I replied. She looked pleased. She had no idea. She had just asked the owner of the property for permission. That night, I lit a candle in the garage. Not for the scent, not for light, but for memory, for proof. I stared at the flame and thought about the girl who once cried in that room, wondering where she belonged. She had found her place, and soon everyone else would find out too. A few weeks later, the trust dissolved as scheduled. Ownership transferred directly from Ever and Gray to me. Clean, quiet, final. My name was now on the title, the deed, the land beneath their feet, and still, I said nothing. I waited, because I knew what was coming. A party, a big one. Jenna's engagement had been announced online with glittering rings and champagne flutes. The backyard would host the event. The same backyard I once weeded with bare hands. The same porch I power washed after Dad died. They sent out glossy invites to everyone, extended family, friends, church ladies, Old neighbors. One was left in the mailbox with my name scribbled at the bottom. Clearly an afterthought. They still believed I was background. They still believed I was forgotten. IRSP bet online. Yes, don't no one followed up. They assumed I would show up like always, quiet, harmless, pitiful. But this time would be different because I was not coming to watch. I was coming to reclaim as the owner, as the one they discarded. And who now held the deed? They thought I was a guest. I was the owner. The day of the engagement party approached like a quiet storm. Decorations began arriving in waves, folding chairs, white tents, overpriced flower arrangements. I watched them unload crates into the backyard, my backyard, with a kind of serene detachment that can only come from knowing something no one else knows. Jenna bossed everyone around like a socialite with a throne to defend. My mother beamed, like royalty, directing the caterers and tapping her pen against the seating chart. Ty wandered through the chaos with a beer, offering no help but plenty of commentary. No one looked at me, not really. I was the ghost in the garage, the almost daughter, the one who had nothing going on. And yet, everything they were stacking, planting, taping, and building belonged to me. I had not moved out. I had not stormed off. I had not written a dramatic letter. I had stayed, quiet, watching now. I moved with calm precision. 3 days before the party, I met with the real estate attorney I had retained months earlier. We reviewed the ownership documents, checked the final filings, and prepared the formal notification packet for delivery. It would arrive just as the party began, not with drama, just with truth. Are you certain you want to go through with this way? The attorney asked gently. I looked him in the eye. I do not want to embarrass them. I said, but I do want them to understand. He nodded. That night, I returned home and stood in the center of the garage. I opened the desk drawer and picked up the tarnished key one last time. Then I placed it in a small velvet box, the kind people use for wedding rings, and set it beside the front door. A symbol of what was lost and what was reclaimed. The next day I went into town and bought a dress. Not flashy, not expensive, just simple, navy blue and clean. Respectable, powerful. On the morning of the party, I woke early. I brewed my coffee and sat in the garage as the music began. I could hear laughter drifting from the backyard, smell the catered food being warmed, see the balloons bobbing in the breeze. They were preparing to toast a new beginning. They had no idea an ending was already written. At 3:15 p.m. The real estate courier pulled into the driveway. He carried a folder in one hand and a clipboard in the other. He asked for my mother by name. She stepped away from the guests, annoyed. Wait, we are hosting something. It is regarding the property, he said politely. New ownership filings. Her face froze. Jenna approached behind her, confused. What's going on? But I had already slipped past the side gate. I walked through the crowd slowly, calmly, eyes scanning the faces that once turned away from me. This time, they turned toward me. Something was different. They could feel it. And then, I took the small velvet box from my bag and placed it on the table beside the cake. The tarnished key inside caught the sun just right. It glinted. They stared, and still I said nothing. Because sometimes power is not in speaking. Sometimes it is in being seen. What was going wrong? Only their fantasy of control. What pain was surfacing? The kind that leaves no scars, only silence. What would I do next? Step forward, and show them who the house really belonged to. The backyard was loud with celebration. A DJ played soft jazz over the speakers. Guests milled around, sipping champagne, admiring string lights and floral centerpieces. My sister stood at the far end of the garden, holding court in a white dress, her fiancé beaming beside her. My mother floated between tables, cheeks flushed with pride. She waved her hands as she told the story of how she held this family together through every storm. I stood at the edge of the gathering like a breeze, quiet but present. I wore my navy dress, hair pinned back, hands clasped in front of me. No one noticed at first. They had not seen me in years. Not really, but they were about to. The courier who had arrived minutes earlier was now walking back toward the driveway. The folder he had delivered sat unopened on the table near the house, right where my mother had placed it before rushing back into the party. She had not read it yet. I walked toward it. Every step felt like a return to self. People began to glance over, subtle at first. A pause in conversation, a tilt of the head. Danielle. Is that her? What is she doing here? I picked up the folder, turned toward the crowd, and said, gently, without raising my voice, this house no longer belongs to my mother. Heads turned. My mother froze. Jenna blinked as if she had seen a ghost. I placed the folder on the main table. Beside the cake, 3 months ago, I continued. The property entered pre-foreclosure. The lender offered a private acquisition path. Through my company, I purchased it. The deed was transferred to me last week. Silence. No one moved. No music played. I walked to the velvet box I had left earlier, the one with the tarnished key, and opened it slowly. This was the key they threw away when they changed the locks on me. I kept it. I held it in my hand, the metal soft and dull in the light. Then I reached into my bag and pulled out another golden key, smooth and polished, the new master key to the house. I brought a replacement. I placed it beside the old one, 2 keys, side by side, the past and the present. My mother stepped forward, eyes wide. "You, what have you done?" "I bought what you lost," I said calmly. "What you let fall apart." Jenna's mouth parted. No words. Ty cursed under his breath and walked away. The guests began murmuring, "She owns the house." Wait, what's happening? No way. I stepped back from the table and stood silently. I did not smile. I did not gloat. I just stood, and that was enough, because I had done what they never thought possible. I had returned not with noise or revenge, but with power. Real, documented, irreversible power. They clapped for her. Earlier for her ring, her dress, her curated charm. But when I stood, they went quiet. Every eye turned toward me. And this time they saw me. Not the garage dweller, not the burden, not the ghost. Me, the owner. Have you ever seen someone underestimate the wrong person? Tell us your story in the comments. The air shifted. It was not loud or sudden. It was slow, like a ripple moving through water after a stone has dropped in silence. I did not move. I did not speak again. I simply returned to the edge of the lawn and stood beneath the string lights, watching them as they tried to process the truth. My mother was the first to break. She picked up the deed folder and flipped through it with trembling hands. Her lips parted, but no words came. Just a confused gasp, as if she were choking on her own disbelief. "No," she whispered. "No, this has to be a mistake." She turned to me, eyes wild. "Why would you? How could you?" I met her gaze but said nothing. Jenna's fiancé stepped forward, trying to soften the moment. "There's probably just some confusion. Maybe it's a shared ownership or—" "No," I said quietly. "It is sole ownership. My name, my terms. No confusion." Jenna's hands clenched around her champagne glass. "You waited until today to say this. You could not have done this in private." I tilted my head. "You have always handled things publicly. I thought you preferred it that way." A few people stifled chuckles, not cruel, just surprised. Ty walked out from the kitchen, rubbing his forehead like he had a headache. He could not explain. "This is insane," he muttered. "You're just doing this to humiliate us." I looked at him not with anger, but with something colder. Humiliation is what happens when truth meets denial. He looked away. One by one, guests began to shift. Some glanced toward the exit. Others stood awkwardly, unsure whether to offer congratulations or condolences. A woman from church murmured, "I always wondered why she never left." My mother remained frozen. The papers fluttered in her hands like loose feathers, weightless and undeniable. She opened her mouth again, but no apology came. Just panic. "Where will we go?" That was when I realized she still did not understand. I had not bought the house to evict them. I had bought it to end the story of my erasure. My silence, my waiting, whether they stayed or left was no longer my concern. But I would not carry them anymore. "You have 30 days, I said softly. "Then we begin new terms. If you wish to stay, we sign a lease." My sister's face flushed deep red. "A lease? You want us to pay you rent?" "Yes," I replied. "That is how ownership works." A few gasps echoed from nearby guests. Someone whispered, "She's right." The cake sat untouched. The music had stopped long ago. Even the wind seemed to hold its breath. I turned away from them and walked up the porch steps, not to flee, but to reclaim. I opened the front door of the house and stepped inside. My feet sank into the carpet I used to vacuum. My eyes met the family photos I once paid to have framed. Nothing had changed, and yet everything had. I walked to the mantel, removed the photo of my sister's graduation, and replaced it with one of my own. A picture I had taken the day I got my first paycheck, standing outside the old bank, smiling with a check in hand. The money that saved this house before they forgot who did it. Behind me, the door remained opened. I could hear them outside, confused, angry, humiliated, but I did not close the door. Not yet. Because justice does not slam shut. Sometimes it just stands open long enough for the truth to echo through what was going wrong. Their illusion of superiority. What pain was surfacing? The ache of being seen not as a savior, but as a standard. What I do next? Let them choose, stay, leave. But no, this time it would be on my terms. The house was quiet the next morning, too quiet. No music. No voices, no clinking dishes or barking laughter. Just silence, the kind that follows an earthquake. The kind that lets you hear the dust settling over broken pieces. I woke before sunrise, brewed a cup of coffee, and sat on the front porch. For the first time in over a year, I drank it from my old mugda, one I thought had been lost or thrown away. I found it tucked in the back of the kitchen cabinet, chipped but whole. Like me, no one spoke to me that morning. My mother tiptoed around the house as though sound itself might betray her. Jenna did not come out of her room. Ty left early and did not say where he was going. The house felt like it was holding its breath. Later that day, I found an envelope on the kitchen counter. No name, no stamp. Just a piece of paper folded 3 times. Inside, a single sentence. I did not know how far we had fallen. It was in my mother's handwriting. There was no apology, no acknowledgement of what she had done. Just a vague regret, like someone noticing a storm only after the roof had caved in. I left the note where I found it because I had nothing left to offer. No comfort, no explanation, no rescue. The days moved slowly. Conversations stopped, laughter died. The guests who had witnessed the reveal told others. The story spread quietly, how the invisible daughter became the owner. How the favorite children had missed the mortgage warnings, while the forgotten one watched in silence. My inbox filled with quiet messages. Old friends, former coworkers. Even distant relatives. Was it true? Why didn't you tell anyone? I'm sorry I didn't. See it before you. I answered none of them because it was never about being seen by the world. It was about seeing myself again. One evening, I returned home and found my sister in the garage. She was holding the gold key in her hand, staring at it like it might shatter. She looked up when I entered, her face unreadable. I was going to throw it away, she said, like the other one. I waited, but something stopped me. Still, I said nothing. She nodded once, set the key back on the desk, and walked out. No apology. No thank you. Just the soft click of the door closing behind her. That was enough. I walked over, picked up the key, and held it in my hand. It was cool and solid, too new to carry history. Too heavy to ignore. Then I placed it in my own pocket because it belonged to me. This house, this moment, this silence. My mother tried to make small gestures after that, setting an extra plate at dinner, offering me the remote, asking how my day had gone. But I did not return to the table. I did not sit on the couch. I simply nodded when spoken to, then retreated into the home I had reclaimed it for them, but for me. 1 week later, I mailed formal notice, tenant agreements. Drafted with clarity and kindness. They had 30 days to decide. No one responded at first, but slowly. Their things began to move. Ty packed up the basement and left without a word. Jenna stopped filming in my old bedroom. And my mother, she wandered the house like a stranger. On the 30th day, I walked into the living room and found her standing in front of the fireplace, holding a picture of my father. She did not turn around. He would have been proud of you, she said. I wanted to believe that, but I said nothing. Just walked past her and into the kitchen, where I brewed a cup of coffee. This time, I drank it inside, standing, alone, in the home I now owned. What was going wrong? Only their comfort. What pain was surfacing? The ache of being remembered too late. What would I do next? Keep the key. Close the doors, and choose who came in next. It has been a year, 12 months since the day I stood in my backyard and watched every unspoken truth finally land where it was meant to. People still talk about it. Some whisper, some ask outright. But most do not know the full story. And that is fine with me, because the truth is not for everyone. It is for the one who lived it, the one who paid the price of silence, the one who chose dignity when others chose dismissal. That one was me. Today, I wake up in my own bedroom, the same room I once slept in as a teenager, papered with dreams I was too tired to name back then. Now, it is clean, uncluttered, quiet, a room without apology. I live here alone, not because I pushed anyone out, but because no one chose to stay. On terms they could not control. Ty moved to another city. Jenna got married 2 months after the party. The wedding was smaller than she had hoped. I was not invited. My mother visits sometimes, but only when invited. She knocks now. She brings pie or flowers or stories I no longer need to carry. Sometimes we talk, sometimes we just sit. There is no apology between us, but there is distance. The kind that does not ache. The kind that protects. I keep my days simple. Work, coffee, walks in the yard, bills paid on time. Fresh sheets every Sunday. I have added plants to the front porch, hopeful things that grow quietly without asking to be noticed. I still have the 2 keys. The old one, tarnished and bent, rests in a shadow box by the front door. The new one, the gold one, I carry in my pocket. Every time I unlock my door, I remember who I am. Not who they made me, who I became when they stopped looking. I no longer seek their approval. I no longer measure my worth by their invitation. I exist. I thrive. I choose. That is enough. That is everything. Sometimes, I wonder if they ever truly saw me. The girl who paid for the mortgage while they partied. The woman who washed dishes after losing her job. The sister who folded towels no one thanked her for. But I do not wonder for long, because I know her now. And she was never invisible. She was just waiting to return to herself. If you have ever had to choose yourself in the silence, if you have ever loved a family who could not love you back fully, if you have ever walked away without slamming the door, then I see you. You are not alone. If you've ever had to walk away from family for your own peace, know this. You're not alone. Share your story below. Thank you for being here. If you stayed until the end, it means something. And this story echoed through your own heart. Maybe you have been the quiet one. Maybe you were the one they overlooked, underestimated, or used until you had nothing left but your name and your dignity. Or maybe you are just now realizing that the silence you carry is worth more than the noise they throw at you. Let me tell you something. I wish someone had told me sooner. You do not have to be loud to be powerful. You do not need applause to be worthy. And you never have to explain your peace to the people who once broke it. Sometimes the most powerful revenge is not revenge at all. It is becoming someone who no longer needs anything from those who once discarded you. It is owning your story and walking into every room knowing you belong there. No permission required. If this story moved you, I hope you will subscribe for more. More stories of quiet strength, more moments of poetic justice, more reminders that dignity is never weakness, and silence is not surrender. This is Hidden Revenge. And we speak even when they never heard us. Because at the end of it all, here is what matters. They threw me out like I was nothing. So I became something they could never ignore. We will see you in the next story.